Here are the answers to the critical thinking practice questions for Chapter 9. First off, you work in a factory that makes artificial joints, hips, knees, shoulders, etc. You are in charge of sterilizing these joints before they go to the orthopedic surgeons throughout the country. The factory is in California, so you get points, so to speak, for green policies. How are you going to ensure that the joints are completely free of microbes and still make the state of California happy? In other words, your first job is to make sure they're sterile. Second job is to go for green policies. Let's see if we can eliminate anything that would not sterilize the joints. So use of ethylene oxide, that would definitely sterilize the artificial hips, knees, etc. Autoclaves, that would definitely sterilize them. Gamma radiation, that would definitely sterilize them. Soaking the joints in glutaraldehyde would sterilize them, but when you take them out to rinse them, you would have to use sterile water, then you'd have to wrap them in a sterile plastic bag or container. That's just not practical. With the rest of these, you could do them by taking the joint, putting it in the packaging, and then sterilizing them. The most green of these would probably be the solar energy to run the autoclaves. So I would say that is a potential answer. Here's one problem, though. One thing that you have to take into consideration is to make sure what you're sterilizing can put up with high moist heat. Titanium is the most common kind that they're using nowadays, and they're pretty resistant to moist heat. You also have to consider the packaging. You would have to get something that would survive the moist hot heat of the autoclaves. Now, you probably rejected this one out of hand because, oh no, radiation. Well, using a gamma source to sterilize something is actually pretty good, and it's actually pretty green. You don't use a lot of radioactive material, it lasts for a long time, and you can sterilize a lot of stuff. And remember, when the radiation passes through the substance, it doesn't stay. Whatever you're sterilizing is not radioactive afterwards. So no harm to the patient. So I would put that one in. Now, ethylene oxide is a wonderful sterilant, but it is carcinogenic, toxic, and explosive in high concentrations. So that's probably not going to fly in California. Now for the next one, it is the daycare center. I'm not going to read it to you, but I will remind you that we have diarrhea and vomiting caused by Norwalk, or as it's now called, norovirus. So let's look at our options for reducing the numbers of virus at our daycare center. First one, use steam heat to sterilize everything. Well, that sounds wonderful, but how are you going to get the steam heat into your daycare center? You can't take the daycare center and put it in an autoclave. Now, you can use steam cleaners, but they don't have the pressure to get up to the temperatures to sterilize stuff. It is a sanitization, or with the very good brands, occasionally it can be a disinfectant. Remember that non-envelope viruses are very hard to kill. So those steam cleaners are probably not going to be terribly effective against them. So the next one, wash what you can with bleach added. Okay. Throw out the pillows. Okay. Pillows are very hard to wash and then get dry afterwards. Soak the hard toys in a bleach solution. Disinfect surfaces with Lysol, I should say disinfectant spray, and get the carpets cleaned. Well, that sounds pretty good. Now, all of these would work against a non-envelope virus because we're talking about bleach, throwing things away, and with the carpets, there's not much you can do with it. And Lysol disinfectant spray is also very effective against non-envelope viruses. We'll keep that one in mind. Wipe down the surfaces with a quat or quaternary ammonium chloride containing disinfectant. Well, that's not going to be effective against non-envelope viruses. It's just not. Replacing the toys, blankets, and pillows, that would be good. Getting the carpets cleaned, be sure to use ethanol hand rubs. Hate to say it, even though the ethanol in the quat and Lysol disinfectant spray is effective against non-envelope viruses, ethanol hand rubs are not. So we've got two things that are not going to be effective. The quat containing disinfectant and the ethanol hand rubs. The kids will all have developed immunity, so don't worry about it. tempting, but I don't think the parents of the new kids are going to buy that one. And then my favorite, I hate kids, use this as an opportunity to sell the practice and start a new business. Well, I really don't hate kids, but this is supposed to make you laugh. So resist the urge to pick the joke answers. So really the one that would be most effective would be B. Next up, the hospital that is having a C. diff or Clostridium difficile outbreak. Now remember from your chart of resistant organisms that endospores are right up there in difficulty of killing them. This is because they're wrapped in basically a resistant waxy coat, and the organism inside of the coat is metabolically inactive. Basically, it's in suspended animation. So a lot of the control methods that pop holes in membranes, well, they can't get through the coat. That inhibit protein synthesis or enzyme activity, well, none of them are operating, so it's not terribly effective. It's not replicating, it's not, so they're just really hard to kill. So, generally speaking, the methods that are going to work for endospores is getting rid of them physically. So, let's take a look at things that involve getting rid of them. Instituting stricter glove use and hand washing. Okay, you get pathogens on the glove. They go into the biohazard where we can autoclave them. The autoclave is going to kill the endospores. Okay. Hand washing, you're washing them down into the sewage system. We remove them from the wastewater. We don't like any endospores getting through. Degerm surfaces using aseptic technique. Degerming is removing the organisms. Okay. Place ethanol hand rub dispensers outside of each patient room. Well, that's a good idea, but it's not going to help you with endospores. Just not going to help. Use high concentration phenol containing cleaners and disinfectants. Well, hate to say it, phenol is not going to kill the endospores. Not going to happen. Oh, that's supposed to say soak. Sorry about that. Routinely soak respiratory equipment in glutaraldehyde for 30 minutes, then rinse well. You would say, well, respiratory equipment I don't have to worry about for something that causes diarrhea. But if you're handling a patient that's had diarrhea, you accidentally touch a table that the respiratory equipment is going to go on, yeah, it's going to get into the respiratory tract and down into the GI tract. So you definitely want to make sure that you take a look at that. But soaking in glutaraldehyde for 30 minutes is a disinfection technique. It is not a sterilization technique, and is probably not going to help you with the endospores. Institute gown and glove requirements for C. diff patients. In other words, barrier requirements. You're making sure that anything that the patient wears, or if you touch patients, you can take off that clothing, send it to the autoclave. So the best answers are A, B, and F. This one I tossed in just for the fun of it. Just because, I don't know if you've heard this, but I have, and I've wondered about this. And it involves rotting bodies, therefore it falls underneath the topic of controlling microbial growth. Personally, I don't know. Any of these are possible. This is the one that people usually say. Now, remember that food preservatives are organic acids, like citric acid, which is a precursor of vitamin C. Yeah, I'm not going to buy that one. My personal answer is C, because the Viet Cong at the time were much shorter than the American soldiers. You have a larger surface area on the smaller soldiers. It takes the microbes on the skin and the microbes in the gut less time to meet each other in the middle. So decay happens faster if you have greater surface area to volume ratio. That's just me. Can I prove it? No. So any answer that you put, as long as you come up with a good hypothesis, is going to be the right answer in my opinion. As long as you're thinking scientifically about a way that you could test your hypothesis, making sure you have controls, and making sure that your experiment shows you what you actually think it's showing you, then sure, I'll accept it. You don't have to go with my opinion, by the way. Well, that's it for this chapter. Hopefully you had fun with it.